Hey painters, we are going to be doing a collection of watercolors in our last unit on watercolor and painting. So we have our first big watercolor, which is going to be a repeated shape composition using several of the techniques we learned on our technique sheet. Then we're also going to be doing just kind of a landscape, a still life, however you want to call it, of some flowers. We're also going to be doing a thing here, the dandelion. We're going to be doing some birds, and we're also going to be doing just a sign in a washed area. So these will be worked on during class, and you'll kind of go back and forth between all the different projects. So you're going to have 5 pieces of paper. So on your big paper, you're going to write your first and your last name and your table number and hour. Then on the other ones, you're going to do the same thing. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so my first, my last, my table number and my hour. First, my last, my table number and my hour, my first, my last, my table number and my hour, and my first, my last, table number and my hour. Okay. So now I've got all of those things labeled with my name, and now I am ready to watercolor. Okay, here we are back with our supplies. So I've got my crayon, I've got my tape for resist, I've got my watercolors and stuff. Probably you guys are going to do that part tomorrow. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a shape. It could be a star, it could be a heart, a square, circle, whatever. And I'm going to create that not quite in the middle. And it needs to be at least as big as my palm. And then I'm going to overlap that with another one. And then I'm going to overlap that with 2 more for a total of 4. Okay, so I have 2 bigs, 2 smalls. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my white crayon and I'm going to create a resist and color around my shapes that I just did with pencil. And I drew kind of hard with my pencil. I would recommend that you draw softly. I just want you to be able to see it. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tape and I'm going to be making some resist areas. So I think I'm going to have some resist areas right here. And I'm gonna have some resist areas on the other side. Go. Okay. Now I have my resist laid down, I have my crayon laid down, and now what I'm going to do, lastly, you're going to take a texture plate and rub white crayon over the texture plate on your... The next step is to put a wash on this. So I'm going to pick a color from my palette that has at least 2 colors in it. So what I'm gonna do is get my brush nice and wet. I'm gonna get purple and red. So I'm just gonna moisten these hands. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get water and I'm gonna put it all over my paper for a wash. And you wanna kind of work quick. So if you're gabbing at your neighbor and you're not really paying attention, this won't work. If it dries, it won't work. Gotta go fast. We are using watercolor paper, so it will react a little bit differently than we did with the sulfite paper in our folder yesterday when we did the technique sheet. Okay, so now I'm gonna grab both these colors and I'm just gonna start laying them in. I'm gonna get my edges. And remember, our big thing is we don't wanna overbrush. We just wanna lay these in and let them do their work. And I'm getting dry, so I think I'm gonna put more water on. There we go. Just do some purple in areas, making sure I'm getting my edges done. Okay, so then the last thing I'm going to do to this today is I'm going to take some salt and just sprinkle salt on, and then I can't do anything else. I need to let that dry. And now I'm going to get my other ones. Now, for our big paper, you're going to decide which of these 3 or 4 smaller ones do you like best. Okay, so I think I'm gonna go with the birds. So for number 4, this is number 4, what we're gonna do first is we're going to put some circles of water on our paper. And we need to have 5 circles. Okay, then each circle is gonna get a wash of paint. Just like that. Go. Nicely done. Okay, then I'm going to take my little brush with orange and I'm going to make some beaks. Now because my wash is wet, it's going to bleed, and that's okay. There we go. So now I'm done with that. I can't do anything else to that, so now I'm going to let that dry. Now I'm moving on to my next piece. I think I'm going to do this number 2 with you now. So for number 2, again, you're starting with about 5 circles. 5 circles. Then what you're going to do is you're going to dip a color. I'm going to do red. And we're just gonna put that color, whatever you decide. There we go. Then I'm gonna pick up some black, and I'm just gonna drop some black in the bottoms and let that bleed up into the color. Just let the water do its thing. I don't need to brush it. This is the beautiful thing about watercolor. You give that control up. Just let the water do its thing. Okay, so that's all I can do to that today. So now I'm gonna let that dry. So I have to be careful so it doesn't drip and spill. Okay, now I'm coming to my next piece of paper. Now both of these start as washes. Okay, so what I'm gonna do first is I'm going to put water all over this. Now this is number 5. I'm not gonna go all the way to the edge though. I'm just gonna kind of have it float in the middle. And then I'm gonna start going through and making kind of a rainbow thing, following Roy G. Biv. Working the color wheel around. There we go. And that's all I can do to that one today. So now that has to dry. And then here's my last one. This one's gonna be number 3. So for this one, when I lay my water on, I'm going to lay it on, but I'm going to leave a circle that I'm going to leave dry. Okay? So I'm going to put water all the way around it. And I love putting this on YouTube because you guys can just work at your own pace and do your thing. Okay, now I'm going to make a mingled wash. So I'm going to do 3 colors. And I'm just gonna let them mingle. So here's purple, they're first to the party. Then I'm gonna put in some blue, blue's next to the party. Just dropping the colors in. Blue's kind of talking to purple, asking what it's doing. Now I'm gonna do green, and yes, I have done cool colors, those of you who know your colors, because these colors like to mix. So here we go, just letting those drop around. And you know, I think that looks pretty good. So now that's all I can do to that today. So now I'm just gonna take this back to my place where I'm letting it dry and let that dry. All right, so that's it for day number 1.